we've never had a sitting president try to overthrow the government so that he could stay in power. And we've certainly never had one who, when investigated for that, basically wields power as though he were still president and as though he is accountable to no one. Unless he is held accountable, our democracy is in grave danger, because
so based on what
anyway.
Yeah, let me just point out. So based on what we know now, Professor Tribe, do you believe the U.S. Justice Department will try to bring an indictment against the former president related to these events of January 6th?
Well, I wish I knew, but Merrick Garland is a friend and a former student of mine. He's an honest man. He's serious. He said he'll go to the top if that's where the evidence points, and that's certainly where it's pointing now. And there's indication, certainly from the searches and seizures of both John Eastman and of others, strong evidence that the Justice Department is not stopping with the foot soldiers. It's going to the generals. And the biggest general of all, of course, is Donald Trump. I do think the odds are he will be indicted. And
so you think Merrick Garland, the Attorney General of the United States, will indict the former president of the United States?
If I had to guess, that would be my guess.
What are the main hurdles right now, Professor Tribe, to pursuing an actual indictment of Trump? If you were making a case against the former president, where would you be concerned?
Well, I would be concerned, of course, with the possibility of a hung jury, someone who basically believes with Trump that he can do no wrong. But I would think that it would be worth having an indictment anyway. I certainly recognize that indicting a former president would generate lots of social heat, perhaps violence, but not indicting him would invite another violent insurrection. I would be weighing two terrible choices, but it's clear to me, if I were the Attorney General, which is worse. It is worse to say that a president of the United States can hold on to power, do whatever it takes in order to prevent the peaceful transition of power for the first time in our history, and get away with it. Because once that has happened, democracy is at an end.
News out of Michigan. At least one person is dead after a large explosion at an air show in Battle Creek. The fireball caught on camera, with terrified witnesses watching in disbelief. Investigators and the local police are now on the scene. And here's ABC's Zareen Shaw with late details just coming in.
Tonight, one person is dead after a large explosion during the pyrotechnic portion of a Michigan air show.
Oh boy, we got an incident here with the shockwave.
This video showing a truck appearing to race two low-flying planes right above at the Battle Creek Field of Flight Air Show at the local airport shortly after 1 o'clock local time. Witnesses say the truck, called the Shockwave jet truck, was traveling over 300 miles per hour. Suddenly, a massive fireball on the airfield appears to cause the truck itself to catch fire and roll over several times. It's unclear if that first explosion was planned.
Here at Air Show Center, we're going to have our emergency team.
A crowd of onlookers in the viewing area, horrified, gasping as an announcement is made that the emergency teams will be responding.
They'll be out here momentarily.
Authorities say the person who died was the driver of that truck. With the FAA and the local police department were both on the scene when the accident happened, and they're investigating. With
Zareen, thank you.
You know, trust in our institutions is faltering across the board. Think about it. According to the Morning Consult tracker, trust in Congress is at 33%. That's down 10% from just a year ago. The Supreme Court was at 46%, down from 61% a year ago. The news media, I'm kind of in it, it's at 38%, and it's listed as the most polarizing U.S. institution. Great. Frankly, it's not really surprising. Last year, for example, trust in media hit an all-time low, and it just can't rebound, it seems. This last week has clarified why. With lie after lie, especially when it comes to the Supreme Court. You want to get an example? Here we go. New York Times, Carl Hulsey writes this about that big political Roe v. Wade ruling. Senate Republicans did not have to take the politically risky step of banning abortions. The courts took care of that for them. Really? You would think someone who's been reporting for more than 30 years could easily have got this right, but he didn't. What the Supreme Court actually did, as you know, was kick the decision back to the states. They did not ban abortion at all. Yesterday, after the court rejected a case from healthcare workers challenging New York's vaccine mandate, the media went after Who else but Clarence Thomas?
As long as you're fact-checking now, do you mind fact-checking the Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who also wrote that the COVID vaccine is made from aborted fetuses?
Let me just be very clear. There were no aborted fetus cells used in any of our vaccines. His words carry such weight, and I think that's the point.
Let's be clear. That's not what he said. That's not what he said at all. In his dissenting opinion, he said this. Justice Thomas included a description of the healthcare workers' belief that some COVID vaccines were developed using aborted fetal cell lines. It's a lot different. Now, I also want to point out this nugget from Axios. Some vaccines have used fetal cell lines during the early stages of the vaccine development. Got it? So let's move on. There's also the EPA ruling, which sent the media and the left into a complete tailspin.
The emissions from these power plants, we know, are warming the planet. They're causing climate change. But today, the Supreme Court curbed one of EPA's most effective tools to drastically curbing these emissions.
All right, I guess I'll clear this up for you. The Supreme Court didn't curb EPA's power on climate. Congress didn't give them the power in the first place. The Supreme Court merely affirmed that fact. This has been going on for years, by the way. It's no wonder trust in the media is down, down, down.
Hi, everyone. I'm Brian Kilmeade. I want you to do me a favor. I want you to click to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page. This is the only way that I know for sure that you're not going to miss any great commentary, any great news bites, any great interviews coming your way on Fox. You can get it all here on YouTube. So subscribe right now.
The abortion ruling is the most dramatic example of how far and how fast the conservative supermajority moved the court to the right. It didn't just uphold Mississippi's law banning abortion after 15 weeks, it also overturned the constitutional right to abortion. It didn't only strike down New York's law requiring a special need for a concealed carry permit, it said all gun regulations must have historic roots. It didn't just restrict the EPA, it said Congress has to explicitly let federal agencies take major actions. And it reduced the separation of church and state, ruling that taxpayer money can be used at schools that offer an explicitly religious education, and ruling for a football coach who led prayers on the 50-yard line immediately after games.
There are 6 relatively young Supreme Court justices who feel incredibly emboldened, incredibly aggressive to move American law to the right, and they are not stopping with this.
The court shifted to the right when Anthony Kennedy retired, succeeded by Brett Kavanaugh, and even more so with the death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, succeeded by Amy Coney Barrett. With Neil Gorsuch, 3 new justices appointed by Donald Trump. Justice Sonia Sotomayor calls the new conservative majority restless. All 3 liberals said the court overturned Roe at practically the first moment possible. But conservatives welcomed the change.
It's a court that is very much committed not to conservative political outcomes, but certainly to a conservative approach to reading the Constitution and the law.
And as Ketanji Brown Jackson takes her place, the court faces more contentious questions next term. Should it end affirmative action in college admissions? Do businesses have religious freedom to refuse to serve same-sex weddings? And should legislatures, not courts, get the last word in election disputes? The court may be moving faster than Chief Justice John Roberts would prefer, but he and Brett Kavanaugh are at center in the majority in 95% of the term's decisions.
Ukraine's prosecutor general has urged Turkey, a NATO member, to detain a Russian-flagged cargo ship, which he says is carrying grain looted from warehouses in occupied territory. The BBC has been tracking the ship, believed to be leased to the Russian company Green Line, which is not under any sanctions. The vessel set out from Berdyansk. It's currently lying off the Turkish coast. Mark Lebel has more.
Ukraine wants this cargo ship, filmed by the BBC, to be seized. It is carrying grain Ukraine says has been stolen from a Russian-occupied part of their country, allegations Russia denies. The BBC has been tracking the ship, believed to be leased to the Russian company Green Line, which is not under any sanctions, across the Black Sea on a journey that began on Wednesday last week. The Zabok-Zoloi is transporting around 7,000 tons of Ukrainian grain from Berdyansk in southeastern Ukraine, controlled by Russian forces, to Karasu in Turkey, 200 kilometers from Istanbul.
Working closely with our sources in Ukraine, we were able to identify one specific vessel, that is the Zabok-Zoloi. Russian administration there in Berdyansk actually said on a telegram message that this cargo vessel was going to carry 7,000 tons of grain out to friendly countries. We've been able to track the GPS data, and now this vessel is actually 2 nautical miles off the city of Karasu in North Turkey.
Ships from Russia's Black Sea Fleet are ensuring the security of the cargo ship's journey, according to a Russian governor of an occupied area in Ukraine. This has prompted Ukraine to ask Turkey to inspect the grain on board the vessel. But will Turkey comply?
If you look at the broader Turkish behavior since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, Turkey had tried to position itself based on its self-interest rather than doing the right thing, rather than following a certain set of values. And they've played both sides.
Indeed, it's likely Turkey's recent support for Sweden and Finland's NATO bids in the face of Russian opposition was only possible after some serious negotiations. The BBC has also been monitoring Russia's expropriation of grain from inside Ukraine, which is then sent by truck or rail to its motherland. Elsewhere in Ukraine, grain is stuck around the ports and warehouses of Odessa, with mines lurking in the surrounding waters. That's causing shortages affecting food supplies around the world. Western countries blame Russia for the blockages, but Moscow blames Western sanctions for hampering international food supplies. Mark Lobel, BBC News.